Press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from News Laundry.
Welcome to News Laundry Chhota Hafta. For the full episode, subscribe because it is behind the paywall and only subscribers get access to uncut, complete content. News Laundry Hafta is our weekly wrap of all that made the news, all that didn't, and all that should have and all that shouldn't have. We agree, we disagree, we critique, and occasionally we beat each other up. But it's all good fun. Subscribe.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to NL Hafta.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़ लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to the 251st episode of the Hafta. Today on the panel we have two guests. Let me introduce the guests first. We have Vrinda Gopinath, who, other than writing for us, is an independent journalist. She's worked at The Pioneer, The Express, Mail Today. She's written for Scroll, Outlook and The Wire as well. She reported from Uttar Pradesh for us during the general election and write regular columns. Hi Vrinda.
Hi.
Pleasure having you on the Hafta. And we have joining us on the phone line Nitin Sethi, whose reports, his series have created a ripple which we hope will become a tsunami. Hi Nitin.
Hi, thank you for having me on board.
Nitin is a journalist out of Delhi. He was till recently working with Business Standard as a senior associate editor. He's worked as deputy editor at Scroll and senior assistant editor at both Hindu and Times of India. He writes on governance, political economy, and he has a deep focus on development, natural resources, energy and the environment. And like I said, he's done that 5-part series on electoral bonds. We shall talk to him. Also, we have our own in-house team of Meghnad.
Hello.
And Manisha Pande.
Hello.
And I am Abhinandan Sekhri. Okay, Manisha's becoming very dramatic in her hellos.
Yeah.
So, let's go over the headlines. But before we do that, well, pay to keep news free. Because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. News Laundry does have other podcasts other than the Hafta. We have Awful and Awesome. We have Reporters Without Orders. Do check those out. But more importantly, check out our website and see all the reports we do, ground reports that are the bedrock of journalism and are increasingly becoming rarer and rarer. We need you to support independent journalism so more ground reports are made possible, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. We also have two NL Sena projects. One is of Who Owns Your Media, and the second one is to be done out of Telangana, where 48,000 TSRTC employees went on strike and were fired by the KCR within 2 days, I think. And there are lots of stories there, human stories, governance stories, and this entire project will cost about 2,20,000. We have raised 50,000 so far. We'll be sending our crack reporter Pratik Goyal from Maharashtra to Telangana to report on this. So many of you tell us we don't do enough reports from the south. Well, here we want to, and it's expensive. We hope you'll chip in. Go to the NL Sena project and please contribute to the NL Sena.
One thing about this project I wanted to add is that it's a live project. So this is, usually we do stories which are a little far back, but right now as we speak, 47 days have gone by when they have been in protest, the fired employees.
Right.
And this is a live story. So
it's emerging as we speak.
Yeah, it's like we have to be really fast about this, and the listeners, please, if you are listening to this, please do contribute, because we are sending Pratik immediately next week. So this is a live project, so please keep that in mind.
Please top it up. Yeah. So now what do we have? What happened? Meghnad and Manisha, what made the news this week?
JNU was in news. JNU students have actually been protesting for 3 straight weeks now against a draft hostel manual, which has revised hostel fee, dress codes and curfew timings, but things went out of hands this week when students stepped out of the campus and they went protesting on Sansad Marg. They were charged by the police that was getting beaten up a few weeks ago by the lawyers. So now they're beating up people, and interestingly, students wore dressed up as lawyers the next day to intimidate the Delhi police. That was fun. But yeah, it was very one of the students was visually impaired. He was picked up and he was saying that, I'm blind and all, and the police was hitting him and saying कि अंधे हो तो यहाँ protest करने क्यों आए हो and all that.
They didn't say वो तो कानून भी होता है.
Oh my god.
They didn't say that. Okay.
The protests also made news in Parliament. Opposition stormed the well and created quite a ruckus. And of course, all the BJP guys said, "Ye politically motivated hai. These are urban Naxals, and we must not pay attention to them." As of now, with the fee hike, I think the administration is coming up with a formula so that it doesn't affect the students from poor backgrounds, but it'll still be 12,000 rupees more. Even
Right.
for people who are from economically marginal backgrounds.
In fact, yeah, we'll go into the details of that. Then there was electoral bond story.
Yeah. So we have some stories on electoral bonds. Electoral bonds because Nitin has done a wonderful series for News Laundry Hindi, which is a 5-part series. The 5th part was put out today. We are also
there's a
looking
6th
at...
part going out, actually.
6th part is
We
going out,
haven't
which
yet.
is a surprise for
Which is a
us.
surprise for- yes.
Surprise, guys.
Uh.
More to come. But what Nitin has exposed is a lot of corruption, I would say, in the electoral bond scheme, which was introduced in 2017. So there is very little media coverage about it, to be fair, but I'm just reading out some headlines. BJP government busy filling pockets with black money, overruled RBI. Congress raises questions on electoral bonds. This is because Congress did a press conference on the issue where journalists' questions were answered. We will talk about that, and how the BJP also did a press conference, and that was
No
a different
questions are asked.
atmosphere. Then this was in India Today. The Congress with 500 crore in electoral bonds says it opposes electoral bonds. But that
does
is
not-
our story.
But that don't want to tell us where their 500 crore came from.
Right.
So-
So this is a story that Ayush did for us, where he went to the press conference which the Congress was doing, and he asked them, "Are you against the electoral bonds? You have taken 5 crore," and they corrected him and said, "No, actually, we have taken 500 crore." so that story is on newslaundry.com. Please do read it. It's a interesting and fun story, and I think Manisha has a bunch to say about that. Then there is
the session in Parliament.
has started. There is the session in Parliament, which is winter session has started on Monday. So the first day, both houses were adjourned, so we can talk about that. There are a few questions that were asked, and there was a discussion on air pollution, and there was also a discussion on electoral bonds. Not a discussion, but Manish Tiwari raised it. So that is also something that happened.
Well, what happens in Parliament these days are more non-discussions than discussions. Meanwhile,
Why would you say that?
And the debate on air pollution, at least I saw just empty benches. I didn't see
it
anyone
was,
there.
then all non-discussions. Then
And one more thing was Gautam Gambhir has finally attended the meeting of air pollution in Delhi. We kind of did a lot of stories on him last week.
After eating jalebis.
So Kashmir is in the news again. As soon as Mr. Amit Shah said everything is normal in Parliament, Kashmir is locked down yet again. The internet curb in Kashmir will be lifted at appropriate time, says Amit Shah. This is the equivalent of the competent authority will look at it, which means no one knows anything. 765 people arrested for pelting stones since the special status was revoked, says the centre. Also, I read in today's paper, actually, the youngest to be arrested for rioting in Hong Kong is 12 years old.
Oh.
So China and Mr. Shah have more in common. So, well, considering the right of centre government resembles the communist government more than anybody else, is telling. The air pollution and water pollution both were in the news this week. We'll discuss it in a little more detail, but I'll just give you the general sense. Whilst the fires in Punjab and Haryana went down, they've gone up again yesterday. Things are in the 300-400 range. They haven't reached the 700 range yet, thank God. But to do with this, Gautam Gambhir skipped a meeting. Mr. Javadekar refused to answer questions. Meanwhile, there was a water purity issue as well. So Ram Vilas Paswan, who is the Minister for Food and Consumer Affairs and Public Distribution, his ministry cited a report saying that Delhi water is very polluted and is unfit for drinking. The Aam Aadmi Party government said that this is a fake report. And we have a couple of reports on this. In fact, they're exclusives, which you can read to see the conflict of interest. The subcommittee that has been made by the government of India has people from Kent Water Purifier, kyunki Kent hi sabse pure hai. This Hafta is not sponsored by them. All the water purifier product manufacturers, they have people on that committee. So you can imagine there's absolutely no conflict of interest and your interests are being served. Just like advertising funded news serves your interest. Similarly, a committee that has the water purification product owners sitting on them are serving your interest, obviously. And other than that, there was Leonardo DiCaprio also raised concern on Delhi's air pollution. मैंने कहा चलो ठीक है. And finally, Pragya Thakur is nominated to the parliamentary committee on a parliamentary panel on defense. That has shocked many people.
And Mr. Modi had said once that I will never forget Pragya for her good
And I'm actually one of those who is not shocked. I mean, not just because of her credentials, but just because she's an MP and she's a part of the...
And the other three controversial things that happened were, one is a professor in Banaras Hindu University who's teaching a course which is a Sanskrit course, but has to do with, I don't know, I think it's more than just Sanskrit.
Professor Feroz Khan.
A whole bunch of students say we will not let a Muslim teach us this. And though some faculty is backing Mr. Feroz Khan, Professor Feroz Khan, there are many people who are saying that no, he should not be allowed to teach a course. I guess someone should
tell... we should discuss this.
Someone should tell Gulzar, stop writing in Urdu, bro.
Yeah.
Because Gulzar, even when he writes Hindustani, he writes in Urdu because that's the medium he studied in.
Surprisingly, that's what Paresh Rawal, the BJP MP, said.
What?
That, how can Naushad be writing bhajans and Mohammad Rafi sing it? So that was quite surprising coming from a BJP MP.
Oh, so he was saying that this guy should be allowed to teach. I think Paresh Rawal is growing a brain slowly. And Sabrimala...
No, but this is something so basic. I mean... I'm surprised that there are people still supporting it, and anchors doing a balancing act of like...
This monkey balancing is, I think, the biggest problem. In fact, today my recommendation is to do with that also. And then Sabrimala, the Supreme Court, while it has referred it to a larger bench, was a split. Technically, the earlier order that all women should be allowed should still stand. But a 12-year-old girl was stopped from entering the table by the Kerala police. So clearly that majoritarian streak is infected everything. Mamata Banerjee and Asaduddin Owaisi got into a bit of a jhagda where she spoke about minority extremism and he says he's going to contest there. And of course, now both these are regional players, not big news. But because Times now said, chalo ye dono lad rahe hain, we'll use them to trash the whole Muslim community. And they had the usual suspects. Talking about this, I was amazed at...
You looked at the prime time, right?
Yes. And News Laundry Prime Time is back, guys. Check out News Laundry Prime Time. We're going to be doing it once a week on Tuesday. So you can just follow our Twitter timeline and see what's happening on Prime Time on all the channels. So you don't have to subject yourself to that because we will put ourselves between you and harm's way. And the National Registry for Citizens is going to be a
all
nationwide thing. But, I mean, he has indicated that, Mr.
He
Shah.
said that in Parliament.
Yeah.
It's not an indication, he's just saying it.
I think that's going to be the new big thing before the elections. Because, it's going to create this whole countrywide uproar. I think that's what they're building up towards.
Yeah, but Print has done a piece on this. But first, let's talk about the electoral bonds. So let's start with Nitin's report. Meghnad, why don't you just set the context before we pull Nitin into the conversation?
Okay, so what is going on is that there is this instrument called electoral bonds, right? You guys have all heard about it, I hope. But what electoral bonds are anonymous ways to donate to political parties. How it works is you buy a bond from SBI, you give it to any party, and then the party redeems it. So it's like an account transfer, just that there's this layer of bonds being added, which is like a special currency for political parties. And Nitin will actually elaborate on why. Commodore Lokesh Batra spent, I think, an year accumulating documents on RTI of all the communications between RBI, EC, Finance Ministry, PMO, and the trail that has emerged from when this scheme was being implemented. So Nitin's story basically is pointing out like a multitude of flaws.
And lies that the government
and
actually
the lies the government is doing.
So, Nitin, before you get into the explaining us its significance, its importance, how long did it take you to do this report? And if you could include how long it took for the RTIs to come, and whatever you can make public do, and whatever is you think is journalistically should be private, you can keep classified. Because we can't kill all the people who listen to this.
No, from what I understand, Commodore Lokesh Batra has been at it since May 2017 itself. So it's been more than 2 years of his hard labor of getting documents. From what he told us, most of the government bodies were friendly, comfortable in providing after a while. But there have been some departments, particularly in the Ministry of Finance, which have just sat down, locked down on their files and will not share it with him. Despite that, I think the persistence, he got these documents at the end of roughly 2 years of labor. He handed it over to us to start looking at them. Roughly, I would say, in terms of real working days, we spent about 2 months browsing through what's more than 900 pages from different ministries, stitching them together, understanding what really happened, because government notings are not, how would I say, amenable to actually simple reading.
Right.
They're complex gobbledygook written in bureaucracies to understand what it really means besides what they say. It took us about 2 months, and then another month of collaborating with Huffington Post leading, Newslaundry leading in Hindi. It took us another 10 days, I think, to just start writing, editing, and pulling it together, and we're still doing it as we speak today.
So you're doing one more part even as these 5 have been
Yes, we
done.
thought, considering the government has had absolutely nothing to say, either to agree, disagree, or anything with the series, we thought we should provide more. And we will eventually put all the data in public domain because it belongs to the public. It's not ours. It's under RTI. And we'll let everyone take a look at it. I think sunshine only helps the truth come out.
Yes, and we need more sunshine law. So first of all, thanks so much. This is a very painstakingly thorough investigation you've done.
Thank you.
And for our listeners, just so you get an idea, I've heard a lot of people casually talk about what journalism is and what journalism entails. I think there's a good time for me before we continue with some other questions that the panel may have for Nitin. That's we're talking about not counting the RTIs that took 2 years to get. Someone like Nitin to go over all those documents, 900 pages, make sense of it, make some sort of an architecture that this is what happened, figure out what the stories are. I mean, you're doing, an auditor's job, a journalist's job, a lawyer's job. And if you think this is cheap, then you deserve cheap journalism.
I agree on both counts, and I would say more. Even unfortunately, in the last few years, even in this government, getting RTIs is not such a simple job.
Right.
It should have been. That was the purpose and that was the intent of the law. But even finding what kind of RTIs to file, where to get, we need to develop sources, unfortunately, today, to even be able to dig through using RTI, which should have made everything very easy. To top it, once you get into the journalistic exercise of scrutinizing these papers, it's a very tedious job. It's a rather boring job because there's no great excitement to sitting with hundreds of pages, poring over them, connecting the dots. And it does require a lot of effort. And I think the only reason it's been possible this time is because so many of us collaborated, bought the resources that were required. And we do need immense resources for reportage as compared to curation and other forms of journalism, which are important. But this is the base, the bedrock on which journalism is formed. When you bring out new information is when you allow citizens to form better opinions.
Right. And I think the collaboration has to be more than just, let's say, Hafta, Newslaundry and Aramugam. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's Aramugam, right?
Absolutely.
The collaboration has to...
The collaboration is intellectual as well as resources. It's also different institutions and individuals bringing their capacities and capabilities together.
And the audience
in India, there's a tradition of, at least in the legacy media, of not helping each other, promoting each other's work. And I think that needs to change also, because we've seen in the last few days itself how long it's taken the legacy institutions to actually respond to something everyone else was talking about.
Exactly. And this is where you, the listener, comes in, the consumer of news. Surely, if you can, spend 300 to 800 rupees on a packet of cigarettes, 1,000 rupees on an outing, a few hundred rupees to support good journalism is not asking for much. But what it does to impact your life is immensely significant. You may not see it in real time, in real terms. So unless you, the listener and the news consumer, pays to keep news free, then you can leave it to the ads of those of you who hate Kejriwal. That full page ad is what is paying for journalism. Those of you who hate Modi, that full page mugshot of his beautiful beard is what is paying for the ad. Or Yogi Adityanath's the photo shoot must have required a lot amount of dulling of the backlight because otherwise it'll bounce off his head. It's true. I mean, I'm telling you as a director,
not bald person.
No, as a director, whenever I had to shoot people who had a shiny, this thing, it was hard to shoot because, or if you're wearing specs, because the light would reflect. All I'm saying is, I digress. Those mugshots will be paying for your journalism. If you don't want those mugshots to pay for your journalism, or a product like we'll be discussing, the reverse osmosis purifiers, who are not only advertising but are also deciding what is pure for us or not. So do pay to keep news free, because unless the public pays, the public is not served. It's the advertiser who's served. Now,
Abhinandan, if I may actually add, it's so beautiful that exactly what we talk about journalism. If you pay for journalism, journalism will respond to your requirements and desires and expectations. Similarly for politics, this is why electoral bond is such a big issue, because if you want politics to be responsible to citizens, then you cannot have corporates paying for politics.
Right.
You need to have transparency, you have to have their answerability to citizens.
Okay, now tell me, when you did this story, what was the responses that you got from the Sarkar? I'm sure you asked them some questions and stuff as well. And B, why did the Commodore choose you? I'm very hurt because he knows me also. He ignored me.
So we sent detailed questions to the two parties which were involved and implicated. One is the Finance Ministry, two is the PMO. We have not so far got any response from the Prime Minister's office. From the Finance Ministry, we got two detailed questions, instead 2 paragraphs. One, and they are incorporated in the stories. One where they say, everything that was done for public good and after great thought. 2, that we're slightly busy preparing the budget right now, so we'll come back to you later with our thoughts on it, and we need to think about it.
Nice. The other big news was JNU.
Yeah.
Manisha, why don't you just lay the context, and then I'm sure all of us have lots to say about JNU, and we will start with our guest.
So the context is just that students have been protesting in JNU for about 3 weeks, and their main, these are basically a set of new rules that are being introduced. One of them pertains to hostel fee, which would if you implement the latest fee that the administration wants to implement on hostels, JNU would become one of the most expensive hostels across India. Universities like Delhi University, Vishwa Bharati, BHU will all be cheaper. And it's 40% of students in JNU actually come from impoverished backgrounds. Some of them have a monthly income of 12,000 rupees, their families. So they obviously cannot afford the sort of increase this would mean. It's almost like a 40-50% increase on the room rents. And so the students have been, in a continued battle with the administration on the rollback of the fee. Then the administration said, okay, we'll roll it back for people who are from BPL families. They haven't defined yet who will be BPL family. But even for those families, the yearly expenditure will go up to about 12,000 rupees. Besides that, I think for me, if I was a student of JNU and I have the means to pay, I would be super pissed at the administration putting a curfew time of 11 o'clock. This is also another condition that you have to be back in your hostels at 12. And these are PhD students. Some
they
of them
also
are
have
30.
a dress code or something.
And I was amazed to see reporting on this from like the likes of Sudhir, where they're like, ye students raat ke 11 baje tak bahar rehna chahte hain. I mean, clearly they've had no fun in their college life.
But
or
not
they've
even
never been
fun.
to college.
Maybe you're just doing a whole bunch of other stuff. I mean, I just find it...
And so this is one thing that really... And I don't think anyone... We have a lot of listeners who like doing PhD programs and all that, stuff like that. I don't think anywhere in the world you have such restrictive 11 baje tak wapas aa jao. It gets my goat. I mean, why the fuck should I come back at 11? Yaar, main 2 baje aun
morality.
And also then there's this conversation about how are these students contributing. So there is this engineers contribute to the nation, but art students are somehow losers. And you're doing social sciences or you're doing sociology or
but I think
international
that is a view of just a very slim
right.
sliver of also these dudes who are on Twitter, frustrated engineers, because there is enough literature out there. And even if you read the much celebrated Leonardo da Vinci's biography, which has been written by that former editor of Time, the guy who also wrote Steve Jobs' biography. And there is enough articles out there how actually learning the arts really widens your brain. And even if you want to study science, if you have learned the arts, it actually makes you think of science in a way more creative way. And Da Vinci was a fantastic example of that. So I think the people who say that are generally, in any case, illiterate. So
and of course, the taxpayer thing, that why should taxpayers pay?
That really gets my goat. Keep taxpayers. I mean,
the first, and I think this just needs to be drummed into everyone. Of all the tax kitty that we have, whatever we collect, only 3% is personal income tax. 70% to 80% of taxes are indirect taxes, which everyone, even the poor man, your laborers, everyone pays it. So you're not running the country.
So I think two things that I want to come in with, and Vrinda, if you could give your perspective. One thing that I would definitely talk about is, which I think has got lost, is the police brutality. And I definitely want to underline here, 3-4 weeks ago, whenever they got bashed up by the lawyers, who was standing in ITO had been blocked. And those of you who are from Delhi, when the ITO crossing gets blocked, fucking Delhi's fucked.
Yeah.
They had no compunction of saying, oh, hum bichare, are we not human beings? Why are we being beaten up? How quickly these fuckers forget, huh?
Yeah.
And now they're bloody beating these students up who were on a peaceful protest. So which is why I get a lot of pushback saying that you are being unfair. I have no sympathy for the police. I have never had sympathy for the police, and it's unlikely anyone who has dealt with the police will have any sympathy for the police. Because when you get bashed up, the rules that apply to you, you forget, and it'll be okay. We are all hypocrites in one sense. But when you have the power to make sure that doesn't happen, you don't exercise that power. That is one big problem I have. The second thing in this entire controversy was of this tax that, hum tax bhar rahe hain, hum ye kar rahe hain, and these poor students can afford to pay XYZ. I would like an informed study on BPL is people who are just at subsistence level. Just because you're above BPL doesn't mean you're rich.
Yeah.
So BPL cannot be the measure of getting subsidized fee. Those of you who don't know, even people who get 2.5-3 lakh salary a month in the school I'm from, which is considered one of the best in the country, provides bursary for people who are what would be considered very rich, because the fee is a lot more than that. And that comes from various bursaries and funds that have been put together. So even the rich get that, because just being above BPL doesn't mean you can afford JNU. And secondly, one of the reasons that many economists recommend a universal basic income is the amount of money spent in auditing and deciding who falls within that category. You end up spending more than just giving it to everybody. So if one was to set up a mechanism that how will you determine whether this person deserves the bursary or not for thousands and thousands of children, how much will you spend on that committee? Is that less than what you would save here? My guess is no. And there has been no informed discussion on this. People are just payloading their hate and venom.
Yeah, and okay, I mean, to just look at it from the administration point of view, it's true that there hasn't been a hike for 19 years. And 10 rupees is very less to pay. I think if I sort of got admitted to the college, I do think I should pay more than 10 rupees. And there could be a case for, okay, this is the cutoff and that you're a person who can afford it. So you pay up so that, you can sustain it for the rest of the students. But then there are questions about that creating divisions within the student community where, then you sort of demarcate students who can pay, don't pay. And then there are sort of...
No, also one mindset about basically what he said about taxpayers, and it's fine, like the fee structure, I mean, I get, like, some can pay, some cannot pay, right? But the whole comparison about how this money is being wasted on JNU is what is extremely problematic, because, like, if you look at it, some 2.54 crore worth of bad loans have been written off, and that is also taxpayer money being spent. Taxpayer money is being spent in a lot of things, but one of the major things we are spending it on is giving interest on the debt that the government has. That is the largest chunk of our budget right now. Now, if you are looking at the money they are spending on education subsidy, that's 2% of the overall budget, right? And if you look, it's such a bizarre thing to just target this one tiny university which has like 3,000 students, and now people are giving shit opinions like, oh, we should move JNU out to a cheaper area and sell the land off to corporates to build malls so that JNU can run for 50 years after that.
I'd like to also remind you that there is a new NL Sena project on the TSRTC employee strike in Telangana. 48,000 people have been fired. There are lots of stories to be done from there. It is a a humanitarian, crisis at one level of so many families not having a breadwinner, but also governance failure. We're going to be sending our crack reporter there. We need you guys to support that project. Go to newslaundry.com, click on NL Sena and see what phenomenal ground reports we'll get out of there.
सुन लिया अफ्रीका मुफत खोरों. Not to brag or anything, but News Laundry Hafta features in the top 50 in the world on SoundCloud in the news and politics category for podcasts. So do subscribe and see what you're missing, because when the public pays, the public is served. When advertisers pay, advertisers are served. Subscribe, help keep news independent and free.
All News Laundry podcasts are available on iTunes and Stitcher and any other podcast platform.